Well, finally we made it Labor Day weekend, and I know I'm a spoil sport. I can't wait to get some row for myself, though. Then we have the drummer who does the 12 labors of drumming, yes. Craig.
Hi. You know, I realized today that we were all born on a Labor Day.
Leave the stuff to me, okay? That's why you're co-host. You can use that one. Just, I don't know.
Hi, everybody.
We're very thrilled to welcome to the carnival today two really cool musicians, and we have Craig Snyder and Nick Moses joining us. They have that look on their face ready. What do we get into? And we have, you realize we don't really have any foreman here, and I just had a question, and I was just thinking of this topic driving here, listening to Kano's final Beatles show. And
final?
Dave Kane,
yeah.
Beatles
show. His final show?
Yes, he's the last breakfast of the Beatles.
Huh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so maybe you can be on here. I'll have time now. But I want to ask a question more about instruments like guitars. When you're looking for a certain sound, you're playing a certain style, how much is it really affected by the guitar? Do you have to really find the right guitar? Can any type of guitar, can you use it to play something on? Like, say you're playing fusion, you want to go for a country sound?
Yeah, well, it's up to the player, but, they say in Nashville, if you're a guitar player and you want to cover all the basic sounds, you need a Les Paul, you need a Strat, you need a Gretsch, you need a 12-string acoustic and a 6-string acoustic. But yeah, if you want to get a classic Hendrix or Clapton tone, you really need those single coil pickups. If you want a thicker sound, like I prefer dual coil or humbucker pickups, it's just a different sound. But ultimately, it's the player's hands and what comes out of the speakers that counts.
Yeah.
It's electronics and a mix of the design of the guitar, right? I mean, I would think.
Yeah, it's a design. It's a bolt-on neck versus a glued-on neck versus neck through, and the scale length and everything. It's all a factor from the moment your pick or your naked fingers hit the strings to what comes out of the speaker. But the bottom line is what comes out of the speaker cabinet. That's what matters.
Yep. I've looked at it from an amateur perspective, that I've looked at the analogy of cars, where I always say for cars, what cars do you like? The ones that work for you. Like, you'll get somebody who say, like, my dad was an Oldsmobile man for you because it worked. I wasn't a certain car fan because the one I had was a piece of junk. You get comfortable with, like, a type, and you feel just comfortable with it.
That's true.
I don't know with drums, because, you just hit those, don't you, Greg?
I have so many different types, and a lot of times I just have these crummy drums around just for, like, jams and stuff, so I don't have to bring a lot of good stuff out.
A lot of good stuff.
Yeah, he saves the good stuff for you when he's playing.
For the gigs I don't get.
Oh, no. When he gets that big gig at Wembley, that's when he's going to pull the
drag out the good stuff. It's like fine wine.
I always say you have to be a little bit insane, not just to do a podcast, but to be musicians. And what hit both you say, when finally in your head that this is what I want to do, because it's a crazy life?
Well, I started out on acoustic guitar when I was 12, and I was, trying to figure out how to play. I grew up in northwest Pennsylvania, so that was way before personal computers and YouTube and all that stuff, and the thing was unplayable because the action was horrible. And then I begged and begged for an electric guitar. And then when I heard Hendrix play Purple Haze, that was the end of it. That's like, that's what I want to do when I'm a big boy. I want to play it, and that's what I did.
Wasn't there the story that, like, it was a Townsend and some other people saw him playing a club and just said, oops, we're done?
Yeah, it was like Townsend, Beck, and Clapton. I forget who. One of them was walking in and two of them were walking out when Hendrix did his first showcase when he went to England. And the one that was walking in said, what's the matter? Is he that bad? And they're like, no, he's that good.
I think Rochester's the only place he didn't sell out on his tour or two. Good old Rochester.
He was on tour with the Monkees.
Yeah, that was a strange.
Which would be like putting Chick Corea with Charo or something.
I like that one.
He might like that.
I mean, what a weird mismatch.
I
like odd. During college, one of my friends was going to see, it was a benefit concert in Toronto. It was Bruce Springsteen and Sting. And he was telling me, like, the fans didn't know what to make of Sting.
Wow.
Nick, how did it all come about for you?
I started in Hilton, New York, and started trumpet in 4th grade. I wanted to play saxophone, but my mom said you can't afford a saxophone, so you'll play trumpet. And I was sad until my first lesson, and the first note came out, and I liked it. And kind of
for you.
And man alive, can this guy play? Let me tell you. Woo.
Yes,
and
sir.
flugelhorn and bass.
Yep.
I remember seeing Walter Verbo's play a show at the old good old Bob Shop Atrium shows. He played every Sonic Youth. There was 500 different. He's playing a trumpet, and he played 45 minutes straight. You could see the spittle come out. And there's another one called, I forget, I think Mad Dog something. Tom Cole used to recommend all this avant-garde jazz to me, and he was playing for like 45 minutes. I couldn't imagine. It's like playing in the Magic Band or something.
Well, I know it for a fact from taking methods in college for my degree that trumpet is a bitch. So I give you a lot of credit, for being able to play.
Yeah, but I just put my mouthpiece in the case. When I leave, you have a lot more to put away.
That's true. Yeah.
That's like the thing. I think that's one musician who was on here. Question: well, why did you pick the trumpet? Easy to carry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, I would get that a lot from students, why they played the flute, for that reason.
What was like the music vibe in Western Pennsylvania? Did you have any clubs? What were people listening to?
Well, I came up in the 70s. I was a 70s guy, and I was in a town that was in the middle of nowhere, north of Pittsburgh, south of Erie, and back then it was Don Kirshner's rock concert on Friday nights on the TV in black and white, and just having friends that knew how to play and were better than you. And that was about it. But there were a lot of talented musicians down there. And a lot of the bands that I would see, probably guys, 6, 7 years older than I was, would come up and play every Friday night at the local YMCA. When you were 14, you could go to those shows. And there were some serious bands that would come up from Pittsburgh, from Youngstown, Ohio, from Erie. And there was this one band called Philip from Erie that I ended up playing with. They were idols of mine because they did original fusion music, and they were phenomenal. The guitar player played guitar, sax, clarinet, and flute. And they had these really cool arrangements, like they did Manic Depression, the Hendrix tune, and instead of a guitar solo, the dynamics come down, it was a flute solo. That was my first dip into the water of wow, so you can play music differently than the guy wrote it. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I'd only been playing for a couple of years when I would see these bands. I'm like, boy, there's no hope that I could ever play like that.
I always enjoyed playing with you. I've had a chance to play with both you guys in the past.
Who haven't you? We could do 6 degrees of Greg Andrews on the show.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, remember we did those gigs with Danny Lope on bass?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
We played inside the Guitar Center 2006 or something like that. It was fun.
Yeah, and you were nice enough to put that drum solo thing up on YouTube, which
it was great.
I watch it every now and then. I go, wow, I had chops then. I could play.
Playing great.
You still have chops. I heard you killing it with Brian Lindsay band in Canandaigua.
Oh, thanks. Were you there?
I stepped on there and played a tune with you.
Oh, that's right. That was not this year.
That was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, okay.
I understand he's too focused when he plays and he doesn't know who's on. So.
I just get in that zone, man. I can't.
You made a good point, though, Craig. I've been saying one film I did, we broke a camera. This is about 15 years ago. So we had a fundraiser. I had a connection with the bar, and we were looking. It was like a wine social to get money to rebuild the camera. As you could say, I say camera. It was old days before we went to digital. And we found a musician. My partner who directed it, she found a musician in Georgia. And the guy was phenomenal. And I was saying, you don't realize, all over the country, there are these unknown great musicians.
That's true. I mean, there's a lot of players that I'm a teacher too, and I had some phenomenally talented students, and they did not want to play on the stage. They go, I don't want to drag my gear on the stage. I don't want to tour. I want to stay home with my family, and I just enjoy music to play, and I don't really want to do that. I'm like, but you're seriously talented, and some people just don't want to do that. Some people live for it. They want to pack the gear and load up the suitcase with their underwear and their aftershave and take off on the road, and some people don't do that. I
That's
did that
true.
back in the 80s in a show band. We toured all over the South. It was fun at that time, but to do it now, I'm not sure I'd want to do
See,
it.
I've been asking friends of mine that question. Like, I asked Alex Cote that, tours with Michaela, and okay, they're younger, they're like 30-ish, and he's like, I love it. And the other thing Alex said was, well, it beats 9 to 5. And I just asked my friend Rob Mount about it because he played with Lou Graham. He still does some gigs out there, and he said at the time, I really enjoyed it. But like for me, I used to travel a lot for work. I'd go see gigs. I said I had a 4 to 6 hour radius to go see a gig. And I have a friend who still does it. Now I'm like, oh man, where's the gig today? Third part of Webster? You know, and you gotta get a point. Alice Cooper said, you know, you get lifers. You get, like, if you're Bob Dylan, you're 84, and you're playing like 200 shows a year, you have to, I don't get the mentality. Or Willie Nelson used to, during lockdown, he would sleep in his tour bus because he missed it so much. And I just think it's like a person, though, because I can't see, like, being on the road like that.
Well, some people just have it in their system, their DNA, or whatever you want to call it, that they just like to be wandering around and playing.
Yeah, we're all different.
They like the life. They get into a venue, and because I know sometimes I get that way, even though I don't travel a whole lot. But like when I did it, I mean, it was fun. You know, in the 80s, I did the Europe thing, and it was like, you know, you get to places and you're looking at the theater or whatever it is, and some people enjoy the setting up and the whole sound check thing, and, you know, I don't know, they look at it as this is their life, and
well, see, I looked at it as like as a Mad Magazine thing about Star Trek, and it said, okay, this is the boring time between the adventures, and I'm thinking, okay, this is the fun part, the gig. This is the 4 hours and then loading up and taking the bus like they're driving.
Well,
like
yeah,
afterwards.
that's not the fun part.
You know, well, these guys are probably going first class and everything, though.
But I wouldn't mind doing a little. I mean, you know, I'd go to Pennsylvania or, you know, a couple states away or something. But, you know, then you got to have the expenses. You know, it's a lot of coordinating. You know?
I drove an hour to Yates County.
Nobody's got the money to, you know, get an agent.
I had to drive home with a fog. I hit something too.
A lot of deer out there.
No, I found out, like, friends who drove them after, where I hit, like, a log or something. I thought, okay, Greg was going to host this show because I was going to have a car. Now, as we move on, how did you get into this, like, for starting to really play professionally and starting to do gigs and everything? Both of you, either of you.
I'll let Nick take this one.
I started in, like, 1988. I took a job teaching middle school band for 30 years in the same building. And a man called me, I heard you play the trumpet, and it was a band called the Fabulous Dinosaurs. And from then on, you know, just played ever since, you know, locally.
Are you still with the Dukes?
Yeah, we do one or two gigs a year with Ron Alberts, who's now in his mid-80s.
Right.
Still killing it on drums.
Yeah, he's great. I love that guy.
Yeah.
His wife and one of my ex-girlfriends were good friends.
Barbara.
That's how I got to know him.
Yeah, he's my hero.
And his cigars.
He's my hero. I mean,
he's still great. Yeah, he's awesome. Well, he comes from, now there's a good example. He comes from the older school of it, where, you know, he probably went all over the place.
Yeah.
And in the 60s, that was a bigger deal. You know, you had to get exposure. You didn't have all the computer stuff and the internet stuff, and, you know, you had to drive around. You know, that was just, you had to physically go places. You know. But anyway, so.
Yeah.
How did you start really playing, like, really getting serious about it?
Well, I got the bug to keep playing. I'm like, wow, you know what? My mother took organ lessons way back in the day, and the man was older that taught her, and I was just a little kid. And I remember her telling me, his name was Anson, and he was from our little town in Pennsylvania. He grew up playing the live music that you would play on an organ in the movie theater while the silent movie was on the screen.
Right, that's cool as hell.
So I remember my mother's name was Ruth, and he'd sit there, and I was like 7 or 8 years old, and he'd sit beside her. He's kind of a little roly-poly kind of a guy. And he'd go, she's like, no, what do you mean when you played, you know, four boards? He goes, yeah, I had a quad board organ, and the music would be shipped with the films. So the film canisters would come in for some movie.
Wow.
And he would look at the scores, and he would have to sight read the music in conjunction while he was watching the movie. Now, of course, if the movie ran for a week, by the end of the week, he had it down. But a lot of it, I remember him saying, it was like written instructions. Like, when the girl's laying on the railroad track, play a diminished arpeggio, stuff like that. So some of it was cued by what was happening in the movie.
He must pay the rent.
and then when the sheet music would come out, again, I didn't know up from down, and I'd be around the corner. I'm like, wow, that is really cool that those little black dots represent sound. Like, when I grow up, I want to be able to do that, which I did. I still find it fascinating.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah.
That you can look at a piece of paper that's just this one-dimensional thing with black dots on it, and you can turn it into music. It's still a fascinating thing to me.
And that was the big sell for musicians, too, way back when, with that sheet music, because you didn't have anything else.
Yeah.
Remember, we saw Nosferatu like that.
Yep. Yep.
And the funny part is, my friends Ben and Katie did it, and I asked them how they filed. They just said, we ad-libbed it. We just made it along. And I saw the Cat and Canary like that, too, and I was wondering, how do you play all that, how long playing that? It's like,
well, I've said this before, but, I listen to a lot of classic radio, murder mysteries and other stuff. And if you played the Lowry or whatever those organs were, you had a gig forever. I mean, that music was in every single show, every single thing, sound effects guys. That always appealed to me, like doing sound effects. I always thought that was really cool.
Oh, yeah. I remember Joe telling me, the owner of Northfield Music, where I worked for Joe from 87 to 2007. I remember he said he had a girl that he went to school with all the way through school, and after they all graduated, they had their first 10-year reunion. And he said, what do you do now? She goes, well, I live in Hollywood, and I'm a special effects person. He goes, really? He goes, give me an example. He goes, well, like in the martial arts movie where somebody really gives somebody a big blow and something breaks. He goes, that's really close to the microphone. We take a piece of celery and snap it.
Right. I remember watching, this is a weird kind of segue, but I remember watching on the Woody Woodpecker cartoons, right? Walter Lantz, the creator, he would come on every now and then, kind of like a Walt Disney, and he would do like a live something about the art or something. And he did a thing on sound one time, and he showed how fire's done by taking a thing of cellophane and just crinkling it up to the microphone. And he did another thing with something slapping an armchair, like a leather armchair for something. And I always, when you're a little kid, you're like, wow. So I used to do these little things on my tape recorder and make up sounds.
Yeah, I had my own radio station on my tape recorder. We do that.
His own radio station.
Yeah, but we do. But one of my friends, this is years ago for Fringe, they did a play at the Lyric Theater where it was an old radio show, so they were showing them doing all that stuff. But like for Star Wars or laser effects, what they would do was bash a telephone wire. And I like that. I think that's what we're missing a lot now with all the Deus Ex Machina of technology, now AI and everything, is that you had to be creative. And that's why I like watching old films, everything else, because you go, okay, you didn't have the money, you didn't have this green screen, you had to make it, and you look at some of these older effects, and they're better, I think.
Well, it's just like some of the guitar stuff. Like when you're starting out, you don't think, well, there's slides and all these different things you can do, and like Hendrix used a Zippo lighter to go up and down the strings, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Or somebody played with a beer bottle, and then you're like, oh, you can bend the strings. I remember when I started out, guitars would come with these really fat strings. Even the third string, the G string, was wound. I didn't know up from down, so I'm like, how do they get that odd sound where it goes how do you do that? Well, when I reached the age of 14 and I could go to those YMCA dances where these really good bands would come up from Pittsburgh, I'd stand in front of a guy that had the classic Marshall stack, Les Paul, hair down to his ankles, wah-wah pedal. It's like he's bending those strings. How can you do that? I mean, I know I'm a wimp, but good Lord, I can't even move the string. The guy was kind of nice, from Pittsburgh band. He goes, well, what strings are you using? I go, well, whatever comes on the on the guitar, he goes, is the third string wound? I go, yeah. He goes, well, you have to get Fender Super Bullets. You got to get a 10 gauge, so you got a string you can bend. Man, I got a set of those, put those on my J.C. Penney guitar, the one with the big rocker knobs on it, a whammy bar that looked like a butter knife. Remember those things? The whammy bar was like a butter knife. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like now I can bend the strings. It was like I just discovered the world was round. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world because, again, I was isolated. I live in Canandaigua now. I lived in a town that was smaller than Canandaigua. I mean, and so it was backwoods, you know. It was a big treat if I could go with some older musicians and drive up to Erie or down to Pittsburgh to go to a real music store.
It's like I had like a friend in college, like, well, we have a laundromat and we have a pizza place. What else? Hey, what else do you need? It's like
that's all you need. Don't you have a traffic light like downtown Rushville, New York? Does it have a?
That's great. Still pizza on
so I love all those just from traveling all like the small towns with the character they have.
Oh, and we were on the road. We were in North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, and Alabama in the early '80s, and I loved having a day where you could just go and instead of the tourist traps, just go through the little tiny parts of the towns and some beautiful places down there in South Carolina and Florida. Really nice places. But of course, you know, people say Florida, they think, you know, Disney World and Cape Canaveral, and those are great places, but we played in some smaller towns.
No, it's a big state, and there's different, like, when I hear about bending strings, the first thing that always comes to mind is Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. Mm-hmm. Just that one part where it's like, wow! It's like, how does he do this? How far did he pull the string off? You know, it's amazing.
Well, I remember Albert King, the great blues player, said, you know, the outer strings are, well, if they're tuned to the right pitch, they're E's. He goes, I'd like to take both E strings and make them kiss in the middle.
I would try that. I'd probably break every string on the guitar.
Probably the tiny one would snap.
Or like my finger would like come off. It would be something like that.
I've got a teaching question for both of you guys.
Okay.
So, do you vary your approach if you've got a student that's just starting versus one that's already got a lot of stuff, the basics, the fundamentals down?
Well, definitely.
Do you approach it different?
Yeah, definitely for guitar because, you know, as you start on guitar, your fingers are tender and, you know, you're like, wow, this kind of hurts. Well, you'll eventually build calluses on your fingers. So there's the physical part of it. But, yeah, I definitely vary the approach because as a teacher, I mean, you want the student to be inspired to learn. And you want the student to remain a student. You want to inspire him to come back for more lessons. But, yeah, I definitely vary the approach. But at this stage in my teaching life, I mean, I retired after 11 years part-time at Hochstein and 20 years with Joe at Northfield, and over 15 years at Finger Lakes Community College. So I just teach. It's all word of mouth. I don't advertise. And I pretty much get more advanced students. The only thing I insist on is they have to be able to read somewhat because, as Nick will tell you, not being able to read music on any instrument is restrictive. There's certain gigs that you're not going to be able to play if you lack the ability to read. You couldn't do like a studio session that would require that.
Or a show.
You couldn't, or a show, or even a high school musical. If they called you in, it's like, oh, can you read? And it's like, well, I read, you know, Reader's Digest. That doesn't count.
I read a lot of books.
But let Nick take over. He can tell you too about teaching for 30 years at the school level.
I think the most important thing is to be able to know exactly the level of your student, what they can do and what they can't do, and treat every child as an individual, not, you know, cookie cutter kids.
I've always found like the best in terms of teachers, coaches. You can read the students and realize people are all different. They might just get really intimidated if you do this one way, or somebody might need, like, I know my best professors, I'd always hear I think I did great. You know, you're not working up to your potential because they knew I could handle it, and I always got challenged a lot.
That could go either way.
Well, I always had, though, because I really, you know, they were like almost like I said, like father figures to me, and I really respected them. and they really cared, and they weren't like Sam Kinison and back to school or anything.
Right. Well, I think I found that when teachers say that, because I used to get that whole potential thing a lot, and I really think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of times if they say that, they see something, and they're trying to get you to hunker down a bit, and don't let this time pass you by, because you can do it, but you're just not applying yourself. And hopefully you get the message and don't think, "Ooh, they hate me," No,
I see that with friends, though, who are like very smart, but they just didn't apply themselves. They just think. And I always try to take advantage of this when we have people in the profession, but only to try to like say what's really wrong with the movie was right. You see Whiplash.
Oh yeah.
And how wrong was that?
Wow, I still have not seen that. I don't want to see it.
It was like a little bit over the edge.
You'd be going, "That's Rob being on me."
It was more like the drill instructor, breathing down your neck.
Right.
But it was a little over the top. But I never liked the hard edge approach. I never had teachers that were, hard edge drill instructor types, and I think some of that can lead to discouragement rather than encouragement.
It's got to be fun too.
It's got to be fun. Music is supposed to be fun, but to me, the best teacher would be the one to be like, "Are you sure that's the best you can do? I think you got more talent there than you think you are. Just plant that little seed to encourage the student."
I don't. A lot of time in giving feedback, I don't tell them how they did. I ask them, "Well, how do you think you did on that?"
Right.
Then they reflect.
Yep.
And then I don't have to tell them when they made a mistake. They know.
Yeah. You can do that better. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. It's all in the approach. You gotta, because you don't want a kid to go home, "Why should I practice? I suck."
No,
and then they go home and they're all discouraged.
Tom Davis once told me, and it resonated. He's a great teacher from Canandaigua. He said, "When my students leave rehearsal every day, I want them all to feel like a hero."
Right.
So if you have a rehearsal and then all the kids are going out the door singing the melody of the song or their part in the song you just played, you did a pretty good job teaching that.
You got them excited. That's awesome.
I heard the approach that some teachers would say to the student, "Well, how serious do you want to be?" There's like 3 levels. There's the person that wants to do it. They want this to be their life. They want this to be their vocation. They want to do it for real. This is what they're going to do as a teacher or a player. Then there's the one that's kind of in the middle, might go out, play an occasional gig, is never going to devote their life to it. Then there's the one that's super casual, only wants to play, in their living room. And if I would ask a student that, "What do you want to do?" "I want to make this my life's work." Well, then get busy reading, study theory, and get real with it, and go to college, get an education, get challenged, because you're going to need it. You look at YouTube now, I saw a video of a 9-year-old kid in Korea that was playing eruption note for note.
Wow.
On a 3/4 size guitar, and there's many of these savants that can just do that, and it's impressive. But like Joe said once, he goes, "Yeah, there's a lot of these kids that can play like that, but they really haven't paid the dues yet."
Right.
Which is an old musician saying, paying your dues,
Right. And do they really know what they're playing? You can copy stuff and not even know why you're doing it or what you're doing.
You could not know about the content of what's in the music. Like, I'm a theory nerd. I'd be happy sitting at the table drinking a cup of tea and reading a theory book. I'm like a nerd's nerd. I never get tired of it. I just think it's fascinating how you can put a couple different sounds together, and then there's chords and harmony and melodies against it. I never get tired of teaching it. I never get tired of studying it. It's just fascinating to me how our dodecaphonic system of 12 tones can make all this music.
Yep.
And then for those that are super nerds, there's a book that was written in 1947 by Nicholas Slonimsky called The Thesaurus of Scales and Melodic Patterns, which is this didactic approach to even naming intervals and scales with these incredibly long names like sesquiquinquitone and all these bizarre things. But all my heroes like John McLaughlin and Pat Martino, even Holdsworth to some degree studied out of this book, because it's so incredibly challenging. This guy just took music to a just bizarre level of theory, and I'll get the book out every now and then and read about a half a page. I'm like, okay, I'm good for another 4 months. I'm going to contemplate what this guy was talking about.
I actually bought a theory book too, because I said I got to get back into this and try to understand. I mean, I know the basics, but I don't know it like some of these guys know it, obviously. And I want to know more.
It's good to know what Nick and I played with a bandmate of ours named John McGuire, a drummer. Now John.
Oh, I know John. Yeah.
John went to Nazareth in the late 70s, early 80s, and
I was there with him.
One of your colleagues was the great saxophone player Vinny Orclameno.
Yep.
And John had finished his undergrad degree and was working on his master's degree, as he told me, and he was starting to do student teaching. He goes, "Wow, I was thinking, as much as I love music and musicians and all that, I'm not sure I'm going to just be stuck in a classroom all day." So he got into a completely different vocation of real estate.
It didn't really work for me either.
But it was great. The point I was going to make was it was great because he can read music.
Right.
And he can read well. So when Nick and I get together and play, Nick is really becoming quite good on the bass. We'll get together and we jam about every week for a few hours. And it's great because, hey, John, look at measure 15 there. Let's bring the dynamics down. And he'll just look right at it and he'll play it. But, of course, if he couldn't read, then it would just be, we'd have to explain it to him. We've all been there, right? We've all been there. This guitar player doesn't read, so now the drummer's going to show him how the rhythm goes, and everybody else is going to be standing there twiddling their thumbs when we could be on the next song already.
Yeah, when I knew John, he was doing drums, and then later he's a great keyboard player.
Yeah, he was on Vibes. He has a picture in our jam room of him with a beard, and who was the other guy? There was another guy in that picture on John, too. John was on Vibes. Montgomery?
Oh, John Montgomery.
Yeah, John Montgomery was beside, and they were doing like a recital on two vibraphones.
I get that too, because I'll have sometimes I'll think, oh well, I'm smart enough to do this, and I'll talk to friends who are in theater, and I'll do a quote from Shakespeare, like 2 lines. They do the whole soliloquy in front of me, or I'll do trying to talk music, like a friend from the RPO. Oh, did you see Tar? Oh yeah, it was cool. Go all the way into it's like, huh? And a lot of people like the RPO, like you said, like that I've talked to, like, well, I was doing this like when I was 3, but I go back a little to what you were saying about. It's how we learn when we grow older. About I had a professor. I'm one time a freshman year. He's all excited about getting a math book, and we're sitting there like he gets. He's like, I couldn't wait to get this book when they kept talking. We're all like chuckling. Now I'm that person in terms of like my interests. It's like you said, like for theory, where I like history or something. It's like I couldn't wait to get this. See other people.
I couldn't imagine a kid where I grew up like, man, Craig, I can't wait to get that math book. I go, why? So you can roll a joint on it?
No, and he's talking about like graphing like negative like integers and stuff. I'm like, no, the farthest I ever went with that was Lives of the Great Composers. But then I talked like Whiplash. It's like Kyle Bach was telling me going on. He's going on though. It's like again when you make the mistake, he's like. Talking about he's about playing this bass thing for like a concert. Then he goes on about, oh, nobody's ever going to sabotage like that. And I'm like, Kyle, civilian.
So bringing up, I know you were just kind of goofing around there, but do you buy the whole math and music relationship thing?
Oh, I do, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody asked me once, Craig, what's your definition of music after playing all these years? I go, to me, music is sound organized by math.
Huh. Yeah.
If you brought it down to the basic thing, harmony, melody,
combined
rhythm.
with silence.
Yeah, I mean it is math, and I watched tons of videos on YouTube. The great guitar player Jeff Skunk Baxter.
Right. Yes.
The guy who no one has ever seen his upper lip. For like 60 years, right? Because he's got that cookie duster mustache. He was in Guitar Player magazine about a year ago, a very full interview, and he does stuff for the CIA. he's got some
Wow.
he's got some clearance to do this stuff. And he was talking about math, and he said, if you take the note middle C, C4 on the piano, I'm sorry, it was A440,
Okay.
our grand note A440. If that's sped up, and he gave this, like 10 to the 5th power or something, if that's sped up to that frequency, it turns bright green.
Wow.
So there's musicians that talk about, seeing colors.
Van Gogh saw. I went, now Mozart, good grief, that shows you got me going. But Van Gogh did too. He saw different colors in his head. But Mozart supposedly could just see like the things in his head.
Yeah, they talk about it. It's called synesthesia, where you blend 2 or more of your senses. And if you blend, what you can see in your mind with sound, some of the greatest players say, yeah.
That's how Einstein's thoughts from Walter Isaac's book, that he pictured like a ladder into space and he could see these things like that. That's why I guess that, like for the space, like the shuttle, like the probes and stuff, they said, like Voyager, they put music in because it's mathematical and they think that's going to be universal.
Yeah, what was that one they sent up into space? It was unmanned and it had a gold record of Chuck Berry. Remember that?
No.
Yeah, I don't know whether it was Johnny B. Good, but it was one of Chuck Berry's
I think it was Johnny B. Good.
Yeah, blasted into space. And then you think like, wow, if an alien got that, wow, this is the best they could do. What about this, Mozart guy and this J.S. Bach? I mean, this is the best you guys could do.
Hey, it's better than Bop or something like that. Can you imagine?
Silly humans.
Yeah, but they in this one article I read years ago in National Geographic of all books, they took some of the people and they mentioned Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York, and then the Conservatory of Music in Beijing, China, and they queried all of the upper level professors, like, of all the students you've ever had, how many have ever had true perfect pitch? You hit a note in piano, tell them not just the note, but the register that it's in. And it came up, it was 24% of the Beijing students and about 7 to 8% of the Eastman students. And they talked about, okay, when you have a note on either sides of the oceans, when a certain note is played for you, what do you see in your head? And all of them, is, if you play piano at all, you know that all the white keys represent the grand key of C major, no sharps and no flats. They all said they saw pure white if a song was played in C major, but if it was a tritone away in the key of F sharp major, it was very dark. So they saw like black or dark brown. They would see darker colors. And as musicians, we talk about keys that have a brighter, like D major and C major, a little brighter, and F sharp and E are more darker toned. And they literally talked about seeing those colors in their head.
I remember the guy that was the theory guy at Nazareth. He totally didn't buy that at all. He goes, everybody says G is a pastoral. No, it isn't. That's BS. And we were all going, no.
No. And D major's roll.
It's measured by math to be so many hertz.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like the one liberal arts major going, what is going on here? I'm learning a lot. It's like, can you talk a little about the Dukes, just because it's been in my head because I've been looking at that the whole time we've been doing this?
He's pointing to a picture of Duke Ellington.
Yeah, how did that come about and everything? The Dukes, yeah.
Like Wilmer and the Dukes?
Yeah, how did that come?
Wilmer and the Dukes was a band that formed in 1957 with original members Ron Alberts, the drummer, Ralph Gelati on the piano, Doug Brown on guitar. What instrument am I missing? Wilmer
keyboard?
Alexander on the saxophone
Keyboards?
and vocals. Yeah, the keyboards was Ralph Gelati.
Huh.
And bass was at first Monty Alberts, Ron's brother, and then Ebo, the manager, replaced his own son with Bob Egan.
Oh boy!
Wow.
Well, Monty played drums and guitar for a while, and then there've been a lot of members since. The band had a lot of traction in the 60s with the release of their album, and Give Me One More Chance was a local anthem.
He played at Bristol a lot, didn't he?
Yeah, they played at the Purple Pig,
Yeah.
Bristol, and they really made themselves pretty well known in Buffalo, playing at the Inferno.
Okay.
But their home was Geneva, New York, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
from Geneva. And they started in 57, and the band went for 10 years or so, stopped, and they came together again to raise money for Wilmer's medical bills in the 80s, and the band went until 2010, 2011.
Wow.
And I was part of it for 10 years.
How did you come about joining it?
I had played in that Dinosaur band with the saxophone player Ken Foster,
Oh yeah. Okay.
and Dave DeWitt
Right.
ran the band after Ron Alberts, who's actually related to me, left
Oh.
the band in 2003.
Wow.
But Dave ran the band. Ken, they went down their list of trumpet players, and I was not on the list. There were like 10 above me, and none of them could play a gig. And Ken goes, well, I remember a guy who plays the trumpet. So I did a couple sub gigs, and then I was
There you go.
a Duke for a decade.
And then they called, the final name was the Legendary Dukes, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
And then
I didn't know it was the same band.
that group had the horn section, and Dave DeWitt, an amazing,
Yeah, he's awesome.
my mentor is a horn writer.
Yep.
He would make these incredible, difficult to play. He always kept challenging, like, if I could play a D, he'd start writing songs with F sharp and says, you're doing the recording. I can't play that note. Just get Chuck Garino to do it, trumpet player out of Buffalo. He goes, no, Nick, you're doing it. You need to learn to play that note.
Tighten up that embouchure.
That's
Get
right.
down to it.
So, I had to find a way to learn how to play that note.
Well, that's what's funny, because that whole class that I was in at NAS, the Biabatnis, DeWitt,
Yeah.
and just so many talented people.
Urkel Menno.
Yeah.
Vince, yeah.
Then I got you when you had no class.
Larry Davis.
Yeah.
Did
Yep.
John Nargis go there? The
That
keyboard
name
guy?
sounds familiar. I think so.
That's
Yeah.
one thing I've enjoyed, especially about doing the shows. We've like little history time capsule. We've had a lot of bands. You would have probably heard of Wilmer and Dukes because of this song, but we've had a lot of what I would call unknown Rochester bands that were really good, like back in the 60s and 70s, and getting them on here, like
I heard the
Whale.
Brass Buttons named tossed around
Yeah, a lot
along
of
with
those,
the Dukes.
and I think that's just a really cool thing to have this little history of because I just love history so
Yeah.
much. One thing is we talk about Alan Holdsworth so much. I don't think he's appreciated enough. Should you talk a little about his influence on you? How
Well,
he's just really good.
Holdsworth's contribution to music in general is incredible. But as a guitar player, it's pretty inspiring because he wanted to play saxophone. He was born in 1946 in England. He died in April of 2017. He had begged his parents for a saxophone. They go, well, that's kind of expensive. So an uncle gave him a guitar when he was in his early teens. And the fascinating thing to me was that he said before he even knew how to tune it, he just knew that the strings needed to be really close to the frets so that it would be easier mechanically to play the thing. So he started with his own system of music. He happened upon certain scales just because of his ear. And I've seen some of his charts, drummers like Chad Wackerman and bass players like Jimmy Haslip and Jimmy Johnson said, here's an example of Holdsworth chart. It would just have the title on the top, and it was written usually on a legal pad, and there were just like little lines where the measures were, but there was nothing written, just a scale.
Huh.
And he had his own written, like a Dorian mode was an X, a melodic minor was an X with a circle around it, and then he had a scale that was a pair of eyeglasses that he wrote. So we would just write a measure. So measure 1 was AX. So that would be A Dorian. Measure 2 was B Dorian or something. And they said, you would just play. And he'd go like, what do you want me to play? Like Jimmy Johnson on bass. What do you want me to play? That's why I hired you. Because of your skill level. I want you to play some. And I'm sure I'm going to like it. And they said very rarely did he intervene and go, no, I don't like that. But his legato playing, which means legato means connected and long. his hands were unusually large. I mean, literally, from the base of his palm to the tip of his middle finger was about 10 or 11 inches. So his physical reach on the guitar was way beyond what most mortal people can play. But he would pluck one note and hammer and pull off the rest of them. So with the tone that he used, his lines sounded very saxophone-oriented. There was just smooth lines. And the stuff that he was playing, just ask any of the guys. I just watched the video. Steve Vai said, yeah, I could probably go toe-to-toe with a lot of guys, but if it was Holdsworth, I might just leave. And I first heard about Holdsworth from an early interview in the 70s in Guitar Player magazine from Eddie Van Halen. You know, when Van Halen really hit the scene hard with their first record. And the interview, of course, said, well, who do you think are some of the best guitar players? Who goes, undeniably, this British guy named Alan Holdsworth. There's nobody on earth that will ever sounds like him and ever will. And just his compositions, you listen to any of his albums, Atabacron, Sand, Hard Hat Area. In one measure of music, you can tell that's him. Mike Stern said it best, too. He goes, if you have your guitar heroes, Pat Martino, Mike Stern, Al Di Meola, Holdsworth, if you can't tell what they're playing within a few notes, then they don't really have a sonic identity. It was Carlos Santana that said, your tone is your sonic signature.
Right? Yeah, for sure.
Just like
trumpet players are the same way. Like, you know who it is out of two notes.
And there's something to be said for that, to have that kind of a sound on any instrument, bass, guitar, and even drums. You go like, well, drums, they all sound the same. I mean,
right.
one guy smacks a snare drum, and the next guy comes up and picks up the stick. It sounds, well, Mike Plouffe, a real good local drummer. I remember him telling me,
yeah, he's great.
20 years ago, there was this little clinic with Steve Gadd. He goes, there was about 11 or 12 of us, and there was a drum set up, just a basic 5-piece drum set. And Gadd was real laid back. He goes, well, let's just start by this. Each one of you guys go up and for about half a minute, just lay out a nice, even-tempoed funk beat. I was like, what do you want us to do? I want you to do what I just said, whatever you do. So Mike said, first guy gets up, and he played a nice sounding thing. The guy's like, very good. But he goes, the trick was, we even had to use the same sticks. The same sticks on the same drum set in the same room with everybody. Then the next guy, and Mike is known as just being a real groove guy. He went up and laid up a real nice thing. And Gadd was like, it was all you guys were very good. I enjoyed this. Now, if I was in the studio and somebody said, I just want you to, lay down a nice funk pad here before the song comes in, this is what I'd play. It was unbelievable. It was the same pair of drumsticks.
Yeah.
And he starts playing, and just the balance and just the tone of how it just sounded like a completely different drum set.
Well, it's funny. I've always said that if you line up drummers and you just absolutely go boom, bop, boom, boom, bop, boom, you're going to get 10 different ways of it sounding. It's going to be the same notes and the same values, but the balances and, like you said, and the shading and whatever is all going to be different.
He said the thing that blew him away was the balance. Like, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Because a lot of guys, as you know, are foot heavy and boom, boom, they hit the kick drum and you're playing jazz and it's just too much.
Right.
It sounds more like heavy metal, but he goes, the balance. And some of the ghost drags he was doing on the sticks, he goes, we were just blown away. And even amazing, still it was the same pair of drumsticks on the same drum set.
I think I would offer a little advice to some guitar players. See who your people you like that. If you're a fan of.
That's the best thing to do, Rob.
I love how. I always give credit because I'm huge for blues and Howlin' Wolf fan. And when there's the Howlin' Wolf sessions in London, that album, and Eric Clapton was going to be involved, and they said, well, Herbert Sumlin was playing. Goes, you have someone. What do you need me for? And I appreciate that. But that's why you find out, say you like your popular guitar player, Eddie Van Halen, Richie Blackmore. Who did they learn from? And then go, because I always found digging deeper into music, and you hear drummers like Liberty DeVito or somebody, a lot of people aren't going to know who that is, or Anton Fig or
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. You know, that was a great bit of advice in Guitar Player magazine.
Yeah.
If you have a certain hero, research his background. What are his influences? You know, of course, Richie Blackmore, he would list like a lot of guys from that generation would mention Hank Marvin from the Shadows. They were kind of like the Ventures of England, all instrumental. And then, of course, you'd read Richie Blackmore, is this guy, that guy, and J.S. Bach. You know.
Well, you can hear that in solos for sure.
I can't believe this one, because I'll admit, one of my not favorite bands is Motley Crue, but I happened to see an interview with Mick Mars where he said he was like a big Paul Butterfield man. And I'm going, well, you didn't bring it with you. But, okay, I appreciate that you appreciate the music. I gotta say, for you play really well. I mean, I saw, and I can't remember the next day, but I saw that one gig at Love and Cup, and I remember it was probably a freeway jam you did.
Oh, yeah.
And, no, you can play. So.
Well,
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I've been playing a lot with a bass player named Ronnie Broida. He plays a 7-string bass. Frank Quagliata on drums. I mean, some of the great players. I mean, years back, I played with Steve Curry, Fred Stone. I'm looking forward to Friday, November 14th. I'm playing at the Love and Cup with Nick on horn. My regular guys, Ronnie on bass, Frank on drums. Nick's going to play horn, and John Nargis on keyboard.
Hey, Nick, don't be afraid to toot your own horn.
I'm going to have to try to
no pun intended.
Yeah.
I always think this is like something, one of my views of anything, like writing, doing movies, doing whatever, painting, doing whatever you do. Be confident, but also be open to learning. And always say, don't have such a big ego that you get like, oh, I don't want to play. If you play with better people, it's even like a golf analogy. If you play with better golfers, you probably embarrass yourself, but you'll learn a little. Yeah. And I think if you're a player, you're playing any instrument. If you're playing with people that go, wow, this is, I could strive for this.
Yeah.
And you're not like, I don't feel you get embarrassed or something. You keep your mind open. I think you become just better at whatever you do.
Yeah. I'm fortunate that I get to learn from Craig. He's taught me so much. I like to write a little music or horn parts, and I'll come up with something, and I don't know what the name of the chord is, and I'll just plunk out rote notes I hear in my head on piano. Craig will say, oh, that's a D7 flat 5 sharp 9. And I'm like,
amazing.
Okay. I write down the chords so that my musicians who understand what Craig taught, because his student plays guitar with me.
Yeah, he does do that. He'll call me, hey, Craig, so if I had this note and that note and the other note, what would it be? And I love that stuff.
And you tell me 2 or 3 options. Well, you could call it this, or you could call it that.
Could be G7 sus, could be
G7. But I've seen musicians, like, when I'll see a song, and I'll ask about them, they'll go, gee. And they're like, oh, write this down. I'm like, look who you're talking to.
But you were talking about playing with better musicians. And I played with my own band last night, my main 10-piece band, Diana Jacobs' band, and we had Bill Tiberio on sax.
Oh.
And so normally I have a lot of solos, and I gave the solo to Bill, and on a solo that all the horns are supposed to solo on, Bill solos, and then the band leader looks at me, and I shook my head. No, I'm not going after him. He was just tearing it up last night.
Tell him more about the Diana Jacobs band, Nick.
It's a 10 or 11-piece band.
Wow.
Sometimes we roll with 4 horns. Diana is an amazing singer. They're all great people. Her husband, Metis, plays bass. Dave Kuykendall, Craig's former student, is on guitar. Jason Muskoff is keys.
Oh, he's great, man.
A former student of mine, Chantel Mitchell's backing vocals and does some leads. Another backing vocalist is Christina House. Zach Pelton on sax. Will Frazier on trombone. And sometimes when we have we get the better paying gigs, or have enough room on stage, we invite Kristen Kopf to play Barry sax.
Impressive knowing all the names. I forget Greg's name, just the one person on there.
I practice.
The drum guy over there.
That weird guy that hangs out over here.
And you guys did a CD recently, right? The Diana Jacobs band?
Yeah. All original music.
And their home base is Auburn, kind
of? Yeah. I think that CD was a Sammy nominated. The previous CD, Good Medicine, did win a Sammy, and Diana's also won another Sammy for a blues album featuring Randy Brecker on trumpet and Jimmy Haslip's friend Edgar Pagan and a drummer from Philadelphia, Nate Felty, and I gotta remember Daquan Bowens on keys, and Byron Cage did the live show on drums.
And Sammy's a Syracuse.
Richie Melito and also Dave Kuykendall.
Sammy's what Syracuse area music or something?
Who's Sammy?
The Sammy Award.
Syracuse music. Yeah,
something like
music
that.
award.
So one thing we haven't talked about a little is sort of like it's almost the bell is tolling for our gig over there. We talked about a lot about technical aspects. It's been fascinating and virtuosity, but the thing we have to remember for bands and playing is you have to have chemistry with each other.
I retired. I did 30 years in public education. My retirement goal was to spend my time with really good friends like Craig, Diana's band, and Bill Tiberio group. Bill's a wonderful man with a great band.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that. I mean, sometimes you play with some players,
and that also elevates your playing. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm lucky enough to play with players that are better than me, so I can learn and hopefully improve.
Yeah, and after you played for as long as all of us, as Greg and Nick and me have played, you get to a point where you're like, I want to be with the men and women that, as people as well as musicians. If it's no fun to hang out or somebody's kind of a jerk, I don't want to be there.
When I was a little, it's just Facebook. I was really being too pedantic, but there's like a meme going around. Well, there's Mick and Keith, and then there's Ringo and Paul, and I actually commented out, it's like, what? It's such a pretentious idiot sometimes. Well, you have to realize, what about the chemistry? Like if they had like Rory Gallagher or Roy Buchanan, I think that would have worked in the Stones, or especially Steve Marriott. No, you have to get together and have people do just have this sort of, I call it a little magic sometimes, where there's a balance and it just works and you get along. Maybe you don't get along as well sometimes, but or like I think at this stage, like say, you want to get people like you dig being around to play with.
Yeah, you're so correct, and sometimes it's not the most talented people that have the best chemistry.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes you can put all stars together, and it's just not.
It's called a lot of so-called supergroups that suck.
Yeah, like you've seen it with basketball in sport, and
on
paper, this team's going to win the Super Bowl, and then they can't win a game.
I think Denver Nuggets with Iverson and Anthony.
Yeah.
Well, you got to know where your place is and work in the team, and you know when to lead and when to lay back. And,
know your role within the team.
Right.
How with Diana, what can we do to make her shine? What can I do to make her put her best foot forward?
Well, that's maturity of playing.
I'll tell you, like the best thing I think I've ever seen with musicians is there's always a point of competence with good musicians. Sometimes there's those, I'd call, actually Herb Smith uses this phrase, magical nights. He's playing one night. He's playing one night, and all of a sudden he goes, "This is the best damn thing we've ever done with this song." And you can tell, like, the way they're looking, like, almost like this, because there's something really just actually, like, almost spiritual happens.
Oh, yeah, there's times where I know in my experience, you guys probably have had it, where, I just did that. That was like, some other force is like guiding you. And it's like, everything clicks and the feel's just right. And, it's hard to replicate it, but boy, sometimes you're just on this little magic carpet of something, and it's weird.
Yeah. And then you get the gigs like I was at, like Monday night, where I just told my friend, "You'll remember this one." Everything, the bass breaks, it gets like for a guitar, a bass amp for guitar, and then it's pouring out. There's like a mad chicken running around with a attack.
Well, then sometimes you can have the exact opposite, where you've had the best day of your life. You had a nice breakfast, you went for a walk, and man, you're all excited about the gig tonight, and nothing happens.
It's even like on this, when I get like, we sort of have like, almost like jazz in a way, we have a chemistry, but I know like level for a show where it's like, I can think when I'm going, okay, it's pretty good, it's good. Then there's like the very rare ones you go, that just didn't work, and
Yeah.
That was not one of this. This is very entertaining. I really enjoyed
great.
this
Yeah,
one.
this is awesome.
But we don't want to get like the dong bell because it's been really fun having you guys on. Thanks for being. And I want to know this is our big thing is if Greg starts, we'll be here for an hour if he promotes his gigs.
I got the B-side Friday. September, whatever that is.
Who are you playing with, Greg?
Brian.
Oh, Brian, yeah, cool.
Brian Lindsay.
You know what? I'll toss one out. Our good friend Dan Zaya, Steinmasters are playing September 6th, and I already forgot where they're playing, but you can probably look it up. Somewhere in Victor.
The big gig I got coming up is that Lovin' Cup, Craig Snyder with the Quintet. That's Friday, November 14th at 7 p.m. That's me on guitar, of course, Nick on horn, John Nargis on boards, Frank Quagliata on drums, and Ronnie Broida on his 7-string bass.
Oh my God, I love him. He played on my demos ages and ages ago.
Yeah, I call Ronnie the scientist.
He's a cabinet maker, or at least that's what he used to do.
Yeah, Ronnie's awesome. He even the simplest tune, he's got the chart there, man. That
was like the one place I thought I was gonna get arrested because I don't drink anymore. But like for one gig, I had like a whole bunch of iced coffees, and I'm sort of dressed like this, and my friend said I look like a road manager for the Moody Blues in the 70s. So I get pulled over for a stop by the police, like a DWI thing, and they're looking at me, and because of the coffee, I'm sitting there. I want to put shades on at night because my eyes are red. I'm shaking like, oh no, and I can imagine like getting arrested for being over caffeinated. And how about you for gigs? What's coming up?
I'm playing with Diana Jacobs Band in Auburn, Belvedere's, I think, Friday night, and Prison City coming up in September, and at Wally's the next week. Mostly Diana, and with Craig, we're doing that show at Aquilano Wine Cellars, great venue in Canandaigua.
What was that? Saturday, October 18th, I believe it is. Aquilano Wine Cellars on South Main Street.
Yeah.
There's me on guitar, Nick on bass,
John, Jacobo on drums.
Yeah, Tony Heiler on keyboards, and a really good local singer named Linda Nahar. Is going to do a lot of older jazz, some newer stuff, some Amy Winehouse. I'll sing a few tunes. It's going to be a good show. So it's Aquilano Wine Cellars.
Great venue, and he tries to have great jazz on Friday nights.
And I always say this too. I mean, there's always your cover bands. Enjoy them. Enjoy your mainstream stuff. Try this stuff out if you haven't. You know what? It's like the kid in the cereal commercial. You might like it. You might find out an uplifting experience and go down to great entry level to all kinds of new music, which is the beauty of music. And is there any way, do you have sites or anything, or just Facebook, or just a...
Mine's just CraigSnyderGroup.com. It has
actually
all my
found yours. And
real simple, CraigSnyderGroup.com.
Yeah, for me, just Facebook. DianaJacobsBand.net.
Cool. And we always play a song or two at the end. I know you brought some CDs.
Yeah.
If there's anything, your choice, dealer's choice, your guess. What do you want to? Is there something you particularly want to play?
Sure, I'd like to play an original tune with the Diana Jacobs Band on the album "Love Each Other, Love the World," and play that song, "Love Each Other, Love the World."
Yeah, I brought some CDs.
Okay.
Sure.
Want to just leave it as a surprise, or you just want to pick a song out here? You can just surprise them if you want.
I like to play a tune that I recorded at Finger Lakes College. I wrote the tune that afternoon, and then Ronnie on bass and John McGuire on drums. It's called Exosphere, and they just killed it.
Mm-hmm.
No rehearsal, and again, they could read music, so it was just go in and blast it. It was amazing.
It's awesome. Well, that's all that jazz for this week. We're actually off next week for contractual obligations. But thanks a lot again for coming on. It was fun. And
That's what the skeptics say. The human